In my session over the weekend, my therapist and I realized that the day before marked our 5-year anniversary since I started EMDR with her. And EMDR is a resource that changed my life in a remarkable way. And we spent a majority of this session just reflecting on where I was to where I am now, talking about how God made a way, how He gave me an opportunity in the middle of uncertainty, and I took it. He used a global pandemic to catapult me into my healing, my rebuilding, my relationship with Christ, and what ultimately led to my calling. Everything slowed down just enough that I couldn't outrun what needed to be faced head on anymore. So I did. I started with my physical health. And once I gained momentum about 5 months in, I was able to add in the biggest challenge of my life, my mental health. And looking back, I had no idea what I was in for. Being diagnosed with CPTSD and ADHD, learning what those things actually are and what that means, confronting every fear, every hurt and disappointment, every heartache, and things that have been bottled up for decades. Just excavating things that have been buried just so deep that I didn't even remember them. But my body did. And I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. Because the pain of digging up these old wounds, it hurt far less than even thinking about the damage and the destruction that would happen if I kept living the way I was. And looking back at all of it now, it is impossible to not see God's hand on it all. The way that He positioned everything in my life to put me in a place where I'm able to do what needed to be done and to be able to do so consistently for 5 years, just unearthing just decades of trauma and just more than decades, generations of trauma, dying to my old self and reparenting my inner child, giving her the emotional, physical, and spiritual support that she has always needed but never had, and realizing that I wasn't angry or miserable or unlovable or worthless, that I wasn't even the problem, that I was hurt, that I was scared, that I was living in fear, I was exhausted, I was craving love and safety and certainty, connection, understanding, and healing, and giving that to myself for the first time ever. Coming out of fight or flight, reconditioning my pathways, allowing my body to learn in safety that not everything is a threat. Growing in my relationship with Christ and learning, believing, and living in His Word versus replaying who people have told me that I was my entire life. People that should have loved me the way a child should have been loved. But unfortunately, they didn't have the capacity to do so. And as I reflected on all of this, tears of gratitude just started flowing, realizing that I spent over 38 years living in survival mode. And earlier that day, I heard a sermon on the healing at the pool of Bethesda. Scripture says, one who had been there had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, He asked him, "Do you want to get well?" And this had taken place on a Sabbath. The day that this all happened was also a Sabbath. And before the pandemic hit, things were going from bad to worse in all areas of my life. I honestly didn't know how I'd make it and if I'd even make it. And I was reminded of that even more today when a memory popped up from 2018. It was from a work trip that I took to Chicago for 48 hours while my father was back at home 900 miles away in the hospital by himself. I look at that picture and I don't even recognize the girl in it, and it breaks my heart. All I can see is the pain, the hurt, the overwhelm, and the fear in her eyes. That girl definitely didn't see any way forward. She was so deep in survival mode. And ain't it just like God? Ain't it just like Him to step in and display His glory when we don't see a way? God has been speaking to me through Exodus 14 for quite some time now. I'm sent back to it every single day, and I'm picking up on something new every single time I reread it. It's about how God saved the Israelites from Egyptian slavery. It's about how He orchestrated the entire thing to display His glory, to bring them freedom, and to take their enemies out so they would know He was the Lord. He positioned everything and everyone. And just when the Israelites thought it was over and the Egyptians thought that they had them, He stepped in. And I can't help but see the parallels in my life. Egypt was a place of survival, but it turned into a place of slavery. And survival mode keeps us safe until it becomes the very thing that actually enslaves us. And just when we think it's over, God steps in and He parts our metaphorical Red Sea, making a way where we don't see one. And just for reference, over 600,000 men, not including women and children and livestock and non-Israelites, they crossed over that Red Sea on dry ground. And that sea, it was estimated to be about 800 feet deep at the time. What's seemingly impossible to us is more than possible to God. It's like His main stage to display His glory and His love for us. And it is so easy for us to get caught up in where we are now and how far we have to go that we can't even see how far we've come. To get so caught up on the future and what's out there that we don't even recognize what's right in front of us. So while we shouldn't live in the past, it is necessary to look back to see how far you've come. To remember the times where you couldn't see a way out, but God made a way. To list them out, to come back to them, and keep them as a reminder for yourself of all that He's done. To remind yourself that, yeah, you might not be where you want to be yet, but you're not where you were either. And to keep pulling the evidence from your past victories and accomplishments and the Red Seas that He's already parted for you as a way to deepen your faith. And my life is nowhere near perfect. There are some areas that are doing well and other areas that I'm still praying for. But when I look back on all that He's done, all that He's brought me through, knowing the pain that I felt, the way that I didn't think that I would even be here anymore, but I still am. And it's all because of Him.